Hello, good evening and welcome to News 360 here from the News Hub at Adisawe, Kanda. I am Natalie Ford.
And my name is Alfred Okanse. Coming up in the bulletin tonight.
Workers of Pantang Psychiatric Hospital call off strike following intervention by the Health Minister.
University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, issues a 2-week ultimatum to government to pay book and research allowance to members and constitute public university councils.
Also in the bulletin, Amnesty International calls on government to commute death sentence and abolish the death penalty for all crimes in Ghana.
In the Upper East region, tension mounts as Kosanaba SHS in the Boko West district of the Upper East region following a ban on the wearing of hijab by female students to class.
And in business this evening, inflation dropped from 12.6% to 12.1%.
And on the foreign front tonight, Nigeria's acting president Yemi Osinbajo says President Buhari is recuperating fast and should be back in Nigeria soon.
We've got the details of these stories for you here on News 360, as well as the very latest from the world of sports and entertainment. Remember, we're streaming live on 3news.com as well as TV3 Ghana on Facebook. Let's start off with our first story this evening, as workers of the Pantang Psychiatric Hospital have called off their strike following an intervention by the Health Minister and other stakeholders.
The workers in the early hours of Tuesday morning marched from the hospital's premises to the main Adentan highway, the Adentan barrier, and back to the hospital premises. They held placards with some reading, "Halt development on Pantang lands now, stop development or no work, Mr. President, and resist encroachment of Pantang hospital lands." The workers later converged at the psychiatric OPD, where they were addressed by their leadership and the medical director of the Pantang Psychiatric Hospital, Dr. Frank Banning, who said management has been working towards finding a lasting solution to the issue. The workers waited for the minister chanting songs. The Minister of Health, Kwekwajiman Menu, and his team finally met with the leadership of the striking workers in a closed-door meeting, after which he addressed the media.
We have seen what is going on here. The developments apparently encroaching on Pantang Hospital's lands, blocking the whole facade of the huge facility that we have here. And I don't think that is the best, the proposal and my plea. So they will get back to it tomorrow. That was the understanding. And I thank them for that decision. But then the condition is that they will give us some little time to see how best we can tackle the matter, engage the matter. So from here, what I plan doing is to engage my colleague ministers in lands and natural resources and the Minister of Local Government to see how we can bring this matter to a halt. The whole point is that government has interest in that area.
Leader of the striking workers, Elvis Ekwuamwa, says they are content with government's intervention. He assured the workers would be back at work on Thursday, 13th July.
The agreement is that government has interest in the land in front of the hospital for public good, and so he should temporarily halt operations or development for processes to commence to compulsorily acquire the land space for public good. And so this actually meets our expectation. We are going to be dialoguing with hospital management and I'm sure they are also going to be dialoguing with the ministry. And so we are going to have access to what is being done to put effect to the agreement that has been reached so far.
Patients who attend the Pantan Psychiatric Hospital tomorrow, Thursday, 13th July, are therefore assured of full services from the nurses. AC Benewanyame, TV3, Pantan Psychiatric Hospital.
Now, the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, has given government 2 weeks to pay its book and research allowance and also constitute the university councils after its emergency National Executive Committee meeting in Accra. UTAG warned that failure of government to comply will disrupt academic work and forestall the upcoming congregation.
The National Executive Council meeting of UTAG, which was held behind closed doors, spanned for 3 hours. Issues discussed included the delay in the payment to the book and research allowance and the constitution of the university councils. It was concluded that government should pay the 2016-2017 book and research allowance and constitute councils within 2 weeks.
There are growing concerns on the campuses of the various public universities and tensions are mounting. It is instructive to know that a new academic year, the 2017-2018 academic year, is beginning in August 2017, and the demand for its book and research allowances beckons. Accordingly, any further delay will not be countenanced. UTAG is therefore giving government a 2-week ultimatum to have the universities councils in place and also pay the book and research allowances.
Sources at the Ministry of Education indicate the councils will be constituted by next week Friday, July 21. But UTAG appears to doubt this.
Every day we have information, informal information, that tomorrow the councils will be constituted, next week the councils will be constituted, and it's never been happening for more than 3 months now. So if you are telling us that your checks reveal that they will do it on Friday, we thank God that that is finally, being done. But we cannot believe that until we have formal communication saying that the councils are being constituted.
UTAG says it has already submitted a document on the book and research allowance to the Finance Ministry through the Education Ministry for payment. But sources at the Ministry of Finance refute this. UTAG describes this as unfortunate.
We know that documents have been sent to them and letters have been written between them and National Council for Tertiary Education, and so everything is on their table. So they better, maybe they should pull their drawers and see whether they haven't inadvertently placed those important documents somewhere that they cannot find.
In other stories this evening, Amnesty International is calling on government to commute the death sentence of persons on death row and abolish the death penalty for all crimes in Ghana. Launching its death penalty report in Accra, the advocacy group tasked government to continue with the Constitutional Review Commission recommendation for the death sentence to be abolished.
Amnesty International considers Ghana to be a death penalty abolitionist in practice. This is because though it retains the death penalty in its laws, no one has been executed since 1993. At the end of 2016, 144 men and 4 women were languishing on the country's death roll, of which 62 have been there for more than 5 years. In its research into life on death row in Ghana, Amnesty International found that many who have been convicted did not receive proper legal representation. Similarly, the report revealed majority of death row prisoners have been unable to appeal against their conviction. It said conditions for men and women on death row at Nsawam prison do not meet international standards since it is overcrowded, poorly maintained and has insufficient sanitation facilities. Research Director at Amnesty International Sabrina Tusi said Ghana must move swiftly to abolish the death penalty and abide by its international human rights obligations.
History shows that the fear of death does not reduce crime and that has never done so. Capital punishment does not always succeed in providing closure or a sense of justice to the family and friends of victims. If the states permit the killing of any person, it will be invariably transforming itself into a killer, and there is no justification for the state to become a killer.
Advisor on death penalty at Amnesty International, Oluwatosin Popula, said Ghana would be part of the growing global trend towards the abolition of the death penalty.
Amnesty International opposes the death penalty without exception, regardless of the nature of the offense, the characteristics of the individual, or even the method used by the states to carry out executions. We believe strongly that the death penalty violates the right to life as declared in the Universal Declaration of Rights, and it's the ultimate cruel, inhuman and degrading punishment. We are calling on the government of Ghana to abolish the death penalty for all crimes.
104 countries have abolished the death penalty for all crimes, with 19 of them in Africa.
So as you saw in the story there, the concern by Amnesty International comes off the back of the fact that the laws of Ghana does retain death penalty. However, since the year 1993, no one has been executed. So you might be interested in knowing the top 10 countries that still embrace capital punishment, death penalty. That's China, the United States of America, Pakistan, Iran, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Indonesia, and Iraq, as well as Bangladesh. And China and Iran are actually responsible for the highest number of executions in the world. That comes from statistics by Amnesty International. Out of the 58 countries that still uphold the death penalty, 527 people were executed in 23 countries in the year 2010. Many people, especially top UN nationals, personalities, have described this practice as inhumane and have therefore called for it to be abolished. And that's what Amnesty International is calling for in Ghana as well.
You know, this is a conversation that's been going on for quite a while.
Yes.
It is not new. Over the years gone by, it's always been the call of Amnesty International. You know, so then again, the question is, what is the delay, if indeed there was a constitutional review recommendation to that effect? Absolutely. I'll go on to the telephone lines now and speak to a former commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Justice Francis Emil Short. Justice, I thank you very much, and good evening to you. Now, what exactly went into having this death penalty in our books, I mean, by the framers of our constitution? Because clearly this is not the first time we're having this conversation, but if you look at Article 13, which guarantees right to life, that same article, however, also talks about the death penalty. So what exactly was the consideration by the framers of the constitution?
Well, it's an exception to the right to life for certain offenses for which, the court can impose the death penalty. However, it's important to point out that the death penalty has not been exercised since 1993. So, in reality, we are an abolitionist country in the sense that we don't believe in the death penalty as a deterrent. And therefore, no president since 1993 has signed a warrant to carry out the death penalty. Most developing countries, have abolished the death penalty. And also in the most developed part of the world, especially Europe. America is an exception, where in some states the death penalty has been retained. But even in those states, there is a moratorium on the implementation of the penalty because DNA evidence has shown that quite a number of people who are on death row did not commit the offense for which they were convicted and sentenced to death. And that is one of the major disadvantages or compelling arguments for abolition of the death penalty. That there are some times where there will be a miscarriage of justice and the wrong person might be convicted for an offense. And if you carry out the penalty, You cannot bring back the person when you find later that he or she did not commit that offense. So the death penalty is irrevocable, and there is conclusive evidence to show in other countries and by the United Nations that it is not a deterrent. So it is not surprising, therefore, that the Constitutional Review Commission recommended abolition of the death penalty and recommended in substitution life imprisonment without parole, which I think is a much stiffer, excuse me, it's a much stiffer punishment, because if you have to stay in prison, for your life, it's quite a stiff punishment. People don't understand unless their liberty is taken away and they have to stay in prison. I mean, I've been to see the conditions in our prisons, for example, and they're quite horrific. So I think that we must follow the current modern trend of abolishing the death penalty. The challenge, of course, is to satisfy the majority of people, especially at the grassroots level, that it should be abolished. And it therefore needs a lot of education, for people to understand that there is absolutely no point in keeping the death penalty on our statute books when in fact it is not carried out, and we don't really believe in its implementation.
Now, but you make the point earlier on that since 1993, this has not been actualized. It's in our books. Also, the Constitutional Review Commission white paper report, it indicates or recommends its abolishment. And so what processes has to be taken, or what steps needs to be implemented to have it abolished or expunged from the Constitution, as the Constitutional Review Commission white paper has recommended?
Well, first of all, the constitutional review process was sort of halted or stalled as a result of the 2016 elections. And so the hope is that the new government, the NPP government, will resuscitate or revive the process, and will take a look at all the recommendations of the Constitutional Review Commission, as well as the white report of the previous government, and decide what provisions is going to accept and what it is going to, reject. But under the Constitution, that provision, that in Article 13, is an entrenched provision. Therefore, for it to be amended, it will have to go to a referendum. And, the people, those who vote, I think it's about 40% of those who vote, and 75% must accept. I don't quite remember the figures, but, it's a high figure which has to pass before it can be implemented. In other words, when you go to the referendum, if the people would have to accept, the recommendation to abolish it, that is why it is extremely important that there is mass education among the citizenry about the need for its abolition, so that when it goes to referendum, it will be abolished, and then, of course, it could be removed from our Constitution.
Thank you, sir, for your time this evening. I'm grateful. Justice Francis Emil Short is a former commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Shraj. There's some breaking news coming in tonight. In the breaking news this evening, fire personnel have been battling fire that engulfed the first and second floor of the City Lights located at East Legon. That's City Lights offices located. That's what you see on the screens right now. It's unclear what caused the fire, but it is reported to have started at about 4:30 p.m. earlier today. Both fire and police personnel are on the grounds fighting the fire. As we speak, eyewitnesses' accounts suggest a shop attendant said she was inside when a colleague standing outside started shouting of fire from the first floor. Both the first and second floor serve as a showroom for the company. Reports indicate there is huge traffic congestion as a result of the fire outbreak. So that's what information we're getting. The City Lights office there in East Legon. Superintendent Cephas Arthur is joining us on the telephone. He is the East Legon District Police Commander, Legon District Police Commander. He joined me on the telephone. Superintendent Cephas Arthur, thank you very much for your time. Good evening to you. Now, what exactly can you tell us latest with this fire outbreak that we're seeing?
Thank you very much. Let me say that it is City Light office, and I think they also have a showroom here that caught fire. And the fire, the information of the building catching fire got to the police, the East Legon police around 4:30. It is the East Legon patrol team, which was patrolling the area, that saw the fire outbreak, and they radioed to our information room, and the personnel were brought here. The East Legon police at the initial stage, led by the crime officer, ASP Abura Obinewa, responded time. They got here, and the fire tender was here attending to the situation. As we speak, more fire tenders are here to be able to bring the situation under control. They are only managing the few pockets of isolated fires within the building to ensure that they put everything out before they leave the scene. Let me say that the situation is under control. They managed to confine the fire to the source of the fire, the building that caused the fire, and prevented it from spreading to other buildings around. It's so remarkable. They managed to prevent it from getting to other buildings. So as we speak now, the situation is under control.
So then we understand that as a result of the fire, there's been heavy vehicular traffic at that particular area as we speak. What exactly are you doing about it? Any measures for those who are coming?
Frankly speaking, in the vicinity, there's no traffic at all. The police, the district managed to divert the road. And so we don't have traffic at all within the vicinity of the incident. No vehicles passing here, in the first place. Personnel of the MPC have been deployed at vantage points far away from the source of the fire to manage the traffic situation. So I can't in fact claim from the fire of the traffic situation. So I'm not able to make any decisive comment on that.
Very well. Superintendent, thank you very much for your time, and I'm grateful. Superintendent Cephas Arthur is the Legon District Police Commander.
We're still watching News 360. Let's take a look at what's ahead in the bulletin tonight. Tension mounts at Kusanaba SHS in the Boko West District of the Upper East region following a ban on the wearing of hijab by female students to class.
And in business evening, inflation drops from 12.6% to 12.1%.
Also, Nigeria's acting president Yemi Osinbajo says President Buhari is recuperating fast and should be back in Nigeria soon. We've got the details of these stories and more news shortly. Business news specifically with Parker Siasari, so stay with us.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the very latest in the world of business. My name is Parker Siasari. We'll begin with the very latest with inflation, and the consumer price inflation for June was 12.1%, down by 0.5 percentage points from the 12.6% recorded in May. Well, the acting government statistician Ba Wadia attributed the 0.5% decline in the inflation rates to the base drift effect in the food and non-food inflation.
Index measures changes over time in the general price level of goods and services that households acquire for consumption. Inflation went down in June by 0.5% to record a rate of 12.1%. Acting government statistician Bawadie indicated the main price drivers for both food and non-food items.
The main price drivers for the non-food inflation rate were transport, for a figure of 23.1%, recreation and culture 20.8%, furnishings, household equipment and routine maintenance 20.6%, clothing and footwear 16.6%, miscellaneous goods and services 15.4%, and health 14.3%. The price drivers for food inflation were fish and seafood 12.7%, and meat products 9.5%.
The 12.1% is the lowest inflationary rate since December 2013. Year-on-year inflation rate for imported items was higher than that of locally produced items.
In June 2017, the year-on-year inflation rate for imported items was 2.9 percentage points higher than that of locally produced items.
Food inflation was 6.2% in June compared to 6.3% in May. Non-food inflation was 15.1% in June compared to 15.8% in May. The acting government statistician explained the possible impact of the new 3% VAT flat rate on inflation.
In June, the flat rate had not taken effect, so we don't have its effects as I talk now in terms of the figures we are reporting for June 2017. Let's see what happens when we report on July, whether that effect will reflect in the prices and the subsequent CPI.
Upper West region recorded the highest year-on-year inflation rate of 13.1%, followed by the Greater Accra region with 13%, while Upper East region recorded the lowest inflation rate of 8.6%.
All right, so some good news there. Beginning to see inflation drop. We're generally seeing some improvement in the macroeconomic conditions. Inflation dropping, the exchange rates having some relative stability. We'll find out if this latest drop would have any impact at all on the next policy rate meeting by the Central Bank of the Bank of Ghana. Two other stories now, and President Akufo-Addo has announced an $80 million Swiss support to enhance competitiveness of Ghanaian enterprises and economic diversification. Well, the president was addressing the media after the two countries signed agreements to deepen cooperation.
The agreement signed by finance ministers of both countries had Ghana and Switzerland committing to international peace and security to help deal with the scourge of terrorism. The agreement also focused on improving trade, agriculture, and boosting the production of cocoa.
The two countries will sign a memorandum of understanding in the course of this visit to enable both parties undertake jointly projects to boost cocoa production in Ghana, as well as add value to our cocoa. The new Swiss cooperation strategy for Ghana will be launched shortly, which will involve an amount of $80 million United States dollars to support the enhanced competitiveness of Ghanaian enterprises and the diversification of our economy.
Swiss President Doris Leuthard was happy the agreement will benefit the people of both countries.
The strategy expresses also our strong commitment of moving towards a partnership beyond aid. A partnership where aid does not substitute private investments but catalyzes them. Switzerland's cooperation has the aim of contributing to inclusive and sustainable economic growth and to the fight against poverty, fights against corruption, and an inclusive, comprehensive economy.
Well, that's all for the very latest in the world of business. My name is Park Wishiasai. For more news, you can log on to 3news.com. Over to you now, Alfredo Kanse.
Thank you, Pakwesi. Great. Well, let's go to the Upper East region, where there is mounting tension at Kusanaba SHS in the Boko West District of the Upper East region following a ban on the wearing of hijab by female Muslim students to class. The students, including some Muslim factions, are protesting against the directive by the school's authorities.
In 2015, former President John Dramani Mahama sent out a circular allowing Muslim students to wear hijab to class in all educational institutions and workplaces. But in what seems to be a turnaround, authorities of the Kusanaba SHS have banned female Muslim students from wearing the hijab to class. Muslim students, including Muslim tutors, are angered by this directive, saying it is against their fundamental human right and the Islamic religion. The students have refused to attend classes unless they are allowed to wear the hijab, but the school authorities are adamant. The situation has created tension on campus. It took a visit by the Upper East Regional Executives of the Ghana Muslim Student Association to calm nerves. The GMSA President, Mohammed Isahaku, revealed they met with the assistant headmaster and other staff in an attempt to convince them to rescind their decision, but this was not successful. He indicates the association will wage a relentless campaign until every female Muslim student in Ghana is allowed to wear hijab to class. Attempts to speak with the school authorities, however, proved unsuccessful.
And the Ashanti Regional Police Command has commenced investigations into the suspected suicide of 33-year-old Corporal Ebenezer Kofi Otre. The deceased is alleged to have shot himself on the neck after receiving a phone call at his residence in Kumasi on Wednesday morning.
33-year-old Corporal Ebenezer Otre shot himself dead at Chafo, a suburb of Kumasi, around 7:30 this morning. A girlfriend of the late Corporal Otre said the officer decided to take his own life shortly after receiving a phone call. The girlfriend, who is currently in police custody, claimed she tried to dissuade him, but this rather infuriated him and threatened to shoot himself if she doesn't leave the room. Shortly after she left the room to seek for help from neighbors and friends of the late officer, they heard a gunshot. The police officer was found in a pool of blood when the neighbors rushed to his room. Confirming the incident to the media, Regional Police Public Relations Officer ASP Juliana Obin said the police has contacted the family of the late officer. She also disclosed the Regional Crime Scene team has visited the crime scene.
The Regional Crime Scene team has also visited the crime scene and has commenced investigations into the case. Investigations as we speak are ongoing and further updates will be communicated to the general public.
The body of the deceased has since been deposited at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital morgue awaiting autopsy. Until his untimely death, Corporal Ebenezer Otre was with the Ashanti Regional Police SWAT team. Meanwhile, the Tafo Pankrono Divisional Police Command has arrested 2 persons for dealing in substance suspected to be Indian hemp. The police retrieved toffees laced with Indian hemp and local gin laced with Indian hemp among narcotic substances. The police has advised the public to exercise caution when buying condensed milk toffee.
The exhibit to which the aforementioned substances will be sent to the forensic laboratory in Accra for forensic analysis.
The 2 suspects, 54-year-old Efia Pokia and 56-year-old Issa Yao, are currently in police custody assisting with investigations.
Now, President Akufo-Addo has suggested a stronger strategic partnership between Ghana and Switzerland to enhance bilateral cooperation between the 2 countries. The president said this when he received Swiss President Doris Lehard at the Flagstaff House.
President Doris Lehard is in the country to discuss finance and trade-related matters as well as immigration. President Akufo-Addo called for a new basis of cooperation between the 2 countries.
We are both countries that are committed very much to democratic structures, democratic values, respect for human rights and individual liberty. And it is a firm wish of the Ghanaian people that we continue down this path of democratic engagement. So interacting and cooperating with countries who have the same values and goals strengthens us in our determination to be guided and live by these values.
Swiss President Doris Letard was confident more will be done to deepen bilateral relations and also promote trade.
We think that's an excellent position to give you stability, macroeconomic stability, and also quite a good investment climate, and that's why we are here to stimulate also with the new program for economic cooperation more Swiss companies coming to Ghana.
The Winneba High Court in the Central Region has dismissed an application filed by the University of Education Winneba chapter of UTAG to join the suit against the University of Education Winneba. The court has adjourned the ruling to Friday, July 14. Lucy Ayambila has been following the case.
The application filed by the University of Education Winneba chapter of the University Teachers Association of Ghana seeking to join the suit against the university by one Supi Kwaira was dismissed by the Winneba High Court. UTAG had earlier argued its case out but was waiting for the ruling today. Local UTAG Secretary Dr. Samuel Atintono was not happy about the turn of events.
UTAG is not happy with the ruling, and we'll talk to our lawyers and think of the next line of action. We'll have to appeal. We'll do that.
The court sat on the matter of the injunction placed on the principal officers of the University of Education Winneba, but adjourned the ruling to Friday, July 14.
Remember that this news is live on 3news.com and also on Facebook, TV3 Ghana, on GhanaWeb.com as well. Stay with us after this. Thierry Nyan is coming up with all the news in the world of sports.
Hi, good evening, and it's time to bring you all the latest in the world of sports. Thanks for tuning in if you just did. This will rock you. A Ghanaian footballer, Solomon Nyantechi, who is highly talented and rated, has been arrested in Italy for the alleged murder of his mother and sister on Tuesday night in the city of Parma. He was arrested by police while on an escape route in Milan on Wednesday morning as the security forces chased him for allegedly murdering his mother, Patience Infum, and little sister, Magdalene Nyantechi, who all lived in Italy. The suspect's elder brother, Raymond Nyantechi, returned home from work around 9 p.m. on Tuesday to discover the gruesome murder. Solomon was touted as one of the rising stars in Italian football as he flourished in the youth system of Parma, winning several trophies with them. We definitely are monitoring the situation in Italy and will bring you developments of this particular story subsequently here on TV3. Now, there is increase in tension at the Ghana Football Association between its two top officials after the Vice President, George Efriye, heavily criticized his boss, Kwesi Nyantechi, in a private message. Efriye, unhappy about the way football is being run in the country and the shambolic handling of Ghana's tour of the USA, reportedly told Nyantechi via text that he was becoming too greedy and sinking the association gradually. That has infuriated the GFA boss, who has now initiated moves to remove Efriye as vice president of the body. The latest tension is a recurrence of an existing feud between the pair. Nyantechi backed down on firing Efriye in January this year, but the cracks have appeared again after the tour of the USA. Blessing, remember, he left Liberty Professionals for Sporting Kansas City. But let's move away from there and go straight to the league he just went out of, and I'm talking about the Ghana Premier League. This is turning out to be a great season. The Ghana Premier League entered match day 22, and there has been some further proof there could be a new winner this season. Wafa have led the standings for a long while and seem not ready to relinquish that position. In a very turbulent season where many teams are falling and rising at will, Wafa are steadily moving forward, and their latest win against Bichem United 2-0 it ended. That is obvious pressure on Aduana Stars, and they failed in their quest to keep tabs on the Sugakope Bay side. Aduana lost to struggling All Stars also by 3-1. Kumasi Asante Kotoko have choked finally under Steve Pollack, and that is the very first time in 8 games dating back to May 6. They lost to Inter Allies by a goal to nil at the Elwak Sports Stadium in a game where a player each of Kotoko and Allies were sent off. Hearts will jubilate not only for beating Brekum Chelsea by 2-0, as you can see behind me, but also because they now sit third ahead of their arch rivals. Ashanti Gold are one of the most informed sides in the Ghana Premier League. CK Akono's side won't stop winning. They need to stay up and are playing like that. The Obuasi Bay side beat Boga All Stars in Tamale, and you'll be seeing exactly where they lie on the league table. But that's exactly where everybody stands on the league table. The bottom, at the top half, I should say, looks like this. Wafa are still top, and they have now stretched the gap between themselves and the Aduana Stars by 3 points, 43 and 40 respectively. Hearts of Oak are now third. Kotoko are fourth. Very, very interesting 10 of events there. And then the bottom half looks like this, exactly what we are going to be seeing. Still, we have the likes of Great Olympics, Boga All Stars in there, but Ashanti Gold have actually, just because of the fact that they keep playing so well, can you imagine? They are now 10th on the league table, just behind Wa All Stars, the team who also won their game today. Brekum Chelsea, Amina Sharks and Liberty Professionals following that particular order. Tema Youth drop into the relegation zone. Let's move away from that. We go straight to some other news and straight to Wimbledon, because in England, or in the All England Club, it was a turbulence. Today, top clubs, or the top players, I should say, really are losing, and that really includes the likes of Andy Murray and...
In a News evening, 4 months after suffering a heart failure, actor Prince Yosing, also known as Wache, is saying that he is in excellent form and ready for acting roles. The Choco Trotro actor has been speaking to Osuwarai about his health conditions.
Prince Yosin was rushed to the hospital on March 3, 2016, over heart failure.
According to them, I came with low blood pressure. That was why the blood couldn't pump to the heart.
4 months on, this was Wache's way of telling the world that he's in very good health.
Oh, you are physically fit.
Wache, who is still on medication, revealed his condition has improved, adding he is looking up to God for total healing.
Okay. I will say God loves me. God loves me more. Looking back, most stories I've heard about people who have suffered this ailment, they don't last. If I'm still alive, then it is God.
The Choco-Trotro star, who was warned by doctors to abstain from sex, said he is agile and sexually active now.
Even a car, when it develops fault in the engine, it cannot perform. But it doesn't mean my manhood was seized. Now, every morning or every midnight, I feel it like 5 times before the sun rises. You see, which means it is alive, and it's not the head like the way Agama lizard not the head, But I've not started using it yet. The time will come. What are you waiting for? Yeah, everything has its time. Sometimes it will come and ask me, hey, don't you have any job for me? And I'll say, no, you take your time, take your time. I'll give you jobs and you tell me, hey, I'm tired. Yeah.
The veteran actor said he is ready to take up acting roles. Wache, he certainly hasn't lost his, his
a lot of things people need to do to show that they are in a comfortable lead. I mean, look at that.
The push-ups on the streets.
Absolutely.
He's certainly well and healthy kicking.
It's good to have him strong. Yeah, that's important.
It certainly is. Well, just our entertainment news. Actor Prince David Osei says he is disappointed in how Ghanaians are lambasting actress Christabel Eke over the release of her naked pictures on her Instagram page. The actor, who's currently based in America, wants people to stop judging her and rather pray for her. So you can get more on that on our website, 3news.com. Thanks so much for watching this evening. I'm Natalie Ford.
And my name is Alfred Okanse. Stay with us here on News 360 as we go on to our latest telenovela, Tashan. Good evening.